Bloodstone Fen is the first map added to the game following the release of the Heart of Thorns expansion, and it is one of the smallest maps in the entire game. But while it is small, there are multiple layers to the map that add a lot of depth to the exploration. And today, I want to highlight my top 10 favorite things found within, so let's get started. In the number 10 spot is the hidden staircase in the White Mantle Tunnel. This is an incredibly interesting area that you can find at the end of the map in the Cavern of Unseen Lights. This is an unnamed area that doesn't serve any practical purpose for the map, but is just present there to be an interesting detail. This is some sort of mysterious tunnel that leads from somewhere to the Temple of Renewal, and ultimately this is a pretty basic tunnel that looks similar to the rest of the map. There are some earth elementals and some beetles around here that you can interact with. But an interesting part of this tunnel is, of course, this interesting rickety staircase. It goes up into the tunnel and you can follow it until you get to the part of the tunnel that has collapsed in on itself, presumably from the explosion of the Bloodstone. And what is the purpose of this tunnel? Well, it was presumably used by the White Mantle to get down into the Temple of Renewal. This tunnel likely leads to the Twisted Castle and the Stronghold of the Faithful, which means that Balthazar, disguised as Lazarus, used this tunnel to get down to the Temple of Renewal in order to empower himself. In the number 9 spot is the entrance to the Bastion of the Penitent. Ultimately, this is a pretty simple area, but for anyone who has watched my channel for a while now, you know how much I love entrances to other areas, including instances. I just absolutely love the fact that most of the raids in Guild Wars 2 exist out in the open world, and that there are actual entrances you can go to. Sure, most of us, including myself, use the aerodrome to enter raids, but I still want the real, lore accurate, and immersive entrance present in the world, and this fits that perfectly. It fits into the story of the map where there's a bunch of chaotic magic that is teleporting people all around. Since this portal would take you all the way to the Bastion of the Penitent in the Woodland Cascades region, an area connected to the Mersat and White Mantle, with similar storylines going on in this map. And when it comes to the aesthetics of the entrance itself, it does look really cool with all of the red bloodstone crystals along the wall and floor here. In the number 8 spot is the Bloodstone Mall and the Cavern of Unseen Lights, two areas that go hand in hand and are some of the biggest places in this map. The general story of this zone has to do with the massive bloodstone explosion that devastated this entire area and would have devastated more of Tyria had Balthazar not consumed the magics within. But even with that, you can see so much destruction all around this zone with all of the crazy floating islands and this massive pit leading to the massive cavern. It is just insanely cool looking, and I love diving into this area and then exploring the cavern. I love how in the story, when you come down into this area, there's the Shining Blade Soldier who parachutes down here, and to think about how intimidating this must be to do that if this was real is insane. Just a massive pit filled with chaotic magic that could rip you apart that you are just diving down into, but you also have the meta event that takes place around here, which is pretty decent, but definitely not my favorite thing in the game. In the number 7 spot is the Temple of Renewal. We've talked about everything around this, so let's talk about it specifically. This is the large temple located at the end of the Cavern of Unseen Lights. This was an important location for the White Mantle with all their shenanigans going on in this area, and with the Bloodstone. The structure itself looks really cool, and it's just an interesting looking building that is now on top of an island that is floating in the middle of the air. You do come down here during an important part of the story, and you interact with a bunch of stuff around here as you try to figure out what exactly happened here. But the most interesting thing here can be found on the inside of the walls, as you can find shadows of White Mantle cultists who were present at the ritual as the Bloodstone detonated, searing their image into the wall. And this is actually a well-known reference to the harrowing nuclear shadows or human shadows that can be found in Hiroshima and Nagasaki following the detonation of the 2 atomic bombs. In the number 6 spot is the Colosseum of the Faithful. I just realized everything I've talked about so far has been underground, so let's head up the map. This area is the biggest of the floating islands and features a massive White Mantle ruin. In the story instance, you start at the bottom and are climbing all the way up to the top, where you face Codicus Beetlestone and also face Lazarus/Balthazar for the first time. And I really enjoyed the story mission because I love the sense of progression as you climb up here and even fight a smaller boss in her own room partway up. But you also have a bunch of open world stuff happening here too, where you can fight Justicia or Hablion in a big fight. And this fight even got translated to the Queen's Pavilion during the Festival of the Four Winds, where you can fight Watch Knights disguised as Justicia or Hablion, and some White Mantle with a very similar fight to this one in a similarly themed area prior to this place getting all magically chaotic. but I enjoy the fight that goes on here, the story that goes on here, and just the aesthetics of this building and island. In the number 5 spot is an interesting one, and it is outside of the map. I've highlighted map breaks in Guild Wars 2 before, including this location. If you come back to the entrance to the Bastion of the Penitent, you can actually find a hole in the wall that you can get up to with your glider or your mount. And as you do, you can explore a pretty large area. This place was probably going to be part of the map for something, but was eventually cut. As you explore through this area, you can find more openings that you can go through that allow you to explore further outside of the map and get some really cool views of the map. I love exploring interesting areas like this and seeing the behind the scenes of the game, but this place in particular is just super nostalgic for me because this is the first map break in Guild Wars 2 that I explored. In the number 4 spot is Soulkeeper's Airship. This is the very start of the map, and the airship itself is what you arrive to the map on during the story. The airship itself is pretty average, and it looks like many of the other airships in the game. With that said, I do really like the look of airships in Guild Wars 2, and this one is no exception. This place is also pretty much the only safe location on the map, and is where you can find the Unbound Magic Collector. So as you explore the map, you're often returning back to this place to chill or clear out your inventory or buy some stuff. With that, and with this being an airship up at the very top of the map, you're pretty much just diving into the map from here, which is a fun vibe. But on top of all that, I just love the concept of having your primary base of operations in a map be an airship. When you look at Bloodstone Fen, it is pretty dangerous territory, and while there are a couple of somewhat safe places, there aren't really any good spots to build a town or outpost. And what would one do except bring your own outpost with you, which is exactly what we did here. We see this happen a little bit again in the future, like in the form of Moon Camp and Lowland Shores, but not to this degree, and I would love to see a map in the future that is super dangerous, where our only safe location is aboard an airship, maybe the Glory of Tyria 2.0. And the number 3 spot is the Tomb of the Confessors. Speaking of one of those somewhat small safe spaces in the map, we can find this location on the ground level. It's a pretty small building that is closed off from the outside. You have an incredibly interesting looking door with a couple of steps up to it with a large statue on the cliff that is looking down on you. In front of it is a small packed camp with a few packed soldiers here. And all of this is cool, but I particularly like the soldiers. You can find the one, the only, squad leader Bennett, who is a major character from the Forsaken Thicket raid, who you rescue at the end of the Salvation Pass, which you can chat with Bennett to learn about a lot of important lore and story related to the White Mantle, and also what went on in the Forsaken Thicket, which learning about lore and story is always fantastic, and I love NPCs like this, but having an opportunity for players to get a recap of a raid they did, or for players who didn't even do the raid to learn about what happened, is just fantastic. And the number 2 spot is what I'll summarize as Navigation Chaos. Basically, the design of this map. This idea is split 50-50 between the player base, as some people love navigating this map and others hate it. Personally, I love it. While this map is small, it is incredibly tall and complex, with many different levels and floating islands, and spread across all of them are many different bouncing mushrooms, updrafts, and ley lines that you can use to navigate the map. And on top of all that, there are also a bunch of portals that are appearing and disappearing around the map, which will teleport you to other random locations in the map. Everything together just makes this a super chaotic but fun and interesting location to explore, and I loved flying around here back in the day. You can also gain access to special gliding related skills that allow you to do some different things while gliding, including the ability to create a ley line in front of you, which propels you forward. And as I've been making this video, I have returned to this map for the first time in a while, and I've been using my Griffin and my Sky Scout to get to different places and just mess around in the map. This adds a whole other level of fun to this map, which is just really cool to see, and I definitely suggest returning here when you have a Griffin and just messing around for a bit. But now for the number 1 spot. For my favorite thing in all of Bloodstone Fen, and this might be the weirdest number 1 spot I have ever had in a video because it's how Bloodstone Fen filled up the map. I've been talking a bit about how this map is super small, and this map is small for a very specific reason. For anyone who has watched me for a while, you know how much I love maps. Whenever I play a game or are reading a book, I constantly look at any available maps and just stare at it for a long time, thinking about the world as a whole and how everything is interconnected. Guild Wars 2 is no exception. I love the map in this game and all the different variations of it that we can find. With the original release of Guild Wars 2, we got the big map art, which has been expanded upon, and we got individual maps that add more detail to that map art. And with every new map introduced to the game, we see more specific details added to the overall map that has slowly made Tyria a bigger and more detailed world. As we approached Heart of Thorns, we saw Drytop and the Silverways added to the west of the Brisbane Wildlands. Then we got Verdant Brink, the Lost Precipice Guildhall, and other parts of Heart of Thorns added to the map as well. Then following the release of Heart of Thorns, we saw the first raid of the game, the Forsaken Thicket, added with 3 different wings of the Spirit Veil, Salvation Pass, and Stronghold of the Faithful, added one at a time to the world map. And in the end, we had this peculiar looking hole that is completely surrounded by other maps, raids, and guild halls. Then came Living World Season 3, where we got Bloodstone Fen as the map for the first episode, which perfectly, beautifully, immaculately filled up this hole in the map. So while it is small, it perfectly fits into the world of Tyria, alongside all of the other areas and stories surrounding it, which is beautiful. And I do hope we see more of this in the future, where different holes in the map are filled up, making the entire world truly feel interconnected. If we see a Guild Wars 3 one day, I would love some sort of Guild Wars 2 Beyond that fills the gaps between the games, similar to Guild Wars Beyond, where we travel all around the world and just explore some smaller locations with stories important to wrapping up loose threads or laying the seeds for the story of Guild Wars 3, where we could go to more places like Bloodstone Fen that highlight a very specific story in a very tiny part of the world that ultimately just adds so much to the game. And because of all that, this is my favorite thing in all of Bloodstone Fen. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. It was fun to return to Bloodstone Fen once again, explore this area again, and take a stroll down memory lane. If you enjoy this type of video, consider watching my recent top 10 things in the Mistburned Barrens, or go back a couple of years and watch one of my first top 10 videos like top 10 bridges in Guild Wars 2. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.